Welcome back, focused learners. Let's be real for a second. If you're leading a team right now, you've probably felt that creeping, paralyzing pressure of artificial intelligence. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You feel the immense weight of this massive technological shift. The whole foundation of how we make decisions, how we guide our teams, it's literally being rewritten right in front of us. And man, the pressure to adapt is just absolutely relentless.
It really feels like you're stuck with this impossible high-stakes choice. Do you just embrace AI completely, or do you avoid it entirely? On one hand, you've got AI promising just crazy levels of efficiency and data insights. But on the other hand, decades of leadership wisdom tell us to rely on our human judgment, the stuff you only get through real experience. But here's the thing. Treating this like a simple either-or binary decision, that is exactly what causes leadership paralysis precisely when you need to be agile the most.
Here is the agenda for today's explainer. 1. The false choice trap. 2. The both-and approach. 3. Leveraging human power skills. And finally, 4. Mastering human-AI synergy. Let's dive right in.
All right, Section 1, the false choice trap and why avoiding those extremes is crucial. Because picking a side here inevitably leads to failure.
Look, here is the trap in a nutshell. If you just put your head in the sand and ignore AI, your data-driven competitors are going to completely outpace you. They'll be using algorithmic analysis that you just literally cannot match by hand. But, and this is a big but, if you just blindly adopt it without actually understanding its limitations, you are risking AI hallucinations. When the system confidently spits out totally fabricated nonsense. Or worse, you amplify historical biases that can completely wreck your organization's integrity and bring down massive regulatory nightmares.
Let's look at how this plays out in the real world with two very different extremes. First, a retail executive who totally dismissed AI inventory management. She just trusted her team's gut. Well, within 2 years, she lost a huge chunk of market share to competitors who were using a hybrid approach. Then, on the flip side, you have a financial services firm that just blindly plugged in an AI loan approval system with zero human oversight. Sure, the algorithm was fast, but it basically locked in historical lending biases. They got hit with massive regulatory penalties, and the reputation damage cost them way more than whatever efficiency they gained. So what happened? Both failed because they thought human expertise and AI had to compete.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, the both-and approach. The market doesn't reward picking sides, it heavily rewards cultivating synergy.
This is the absolute core thesis of the book. Instead of asking, hey, do I trust my gut or do I trust the algorithm? The both-and approach asks, how can these two things amplify each other? It's a total shift in your mental model. It's about taking raw data and turning it into actual wisdom through human metacognition. You're intentionally building a system where human critical thinking naturally catches the AI's blind spots.
We have to get really clear on who is good at what. AI is an absolute beast at handling massive data processing. It spots statistical patterns at speeds that are just incomprehensible to us, finding hidden trends that your experience would just entirely miss. But as humans, we are absolutely central for navigating complex organizational change. We handle the messy ambiguity of relationships, empathy, and, this is key, catching those blind spots we just talked about. Basically, AI executes the defined tasks, while humans provide the judgment and balance all those competing priorities.
All right, moving to Section 3, leveraging human power skills, or the uniquely human value you bring to the table.
To actually make this both-and approach work in your day-to-day, you have to consciously build up the skills that algorithms just literally do not have. These are your power skills, capabilities AI can't replicate. And here is the real light bulb moment. As AI automates more of the routine cognitive work, these human skills actually become more valuable, not less. Think of AI as this incredible autopilot system. Well, when a storm hits, that human pilot's judgment is suddenly the most critical thing in the world. Algorithms simply don't know what to do when old patterns don't fit new crazy situations.
We're talking about critical thinking, emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and strategic communication. By doubling down on these core power skills, you're the one who interprets the data within your specific company culture. You're the one asking the probing questions that an algorithm would never, ever think to ask. At the end of the day, humans make the calls that factor in all the messy, real-world stuff no dataset could ever capture.
And that brings us to Section 4, mastering human-AI synergy. Let's look at some real-world integrations.
Let's see what this critical thinking looks like on the ground. Picture a healthcare system that's under a lot of financial stress. An AI system crunches the numbers on declining patient volumes and says, hey, cut the pediatric staff. Just a blunt recommendation. But the human administrator used her power skills. She stepped back and questioned the AI's underlying assumptions. So actually, scratch the cuts. Instead, she invested in highly specialized services to differentiate her unit from the hospitals down the street. And guess what? 18 months later, patient volumes completely rebounded because families were actively seeking out that specific expertise.
The authors sum this up perfectly. The critical thinking that saved the department came from questioning the algorithm's assumptions, not accepting its conclusions at face value. Your human judgment is the ultimate, irreplaceable filter. Machine just saw a downward line and said, cut. The human saw a downward line and figured out a brilliant strategic pivot.
Now, emotional intelligence is just as crucial. Take this manufacturing plant that rolled out a super efficient AI quality control system. Well, predictably, the veteran workers were terrified they were going to lose their jobs, and their productivity just tanked because they totally disengaged. A machine can't fix that, right? But the plant manager immediately realized this was an emotional hurdle, not a tech glitch. So she jumped in and completely redesigned the floor roles. She had those experienced human supervisors actively start mentoring the staff based on what the AI was finding.
By leaning hard into emotional intelligence, she pulled off something amazing. By acknowledging fears, reframing AI as a tool rather than replacement, she transformed resistance into collaboration. She gave the cold data actual meaning by building a structure of human mentorship around it. That is a game changer.
Okay, so what's the game plan for you tomorrow morning? First off, make it a habit to actively challenge AI recommendations. Always ask, what is this algorithm missing? Second, don't ignore the human element. Engage genuinely with your team's psychological fears about all this change. You have to handle the emotional side just as much as the operational side. And finally, constantly practice how you communicate complex AI insights and its flaws to the non-technical folks on your team. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one big, provocative question. When you step into the office tomorrow, ask yourself, are you still going to be paralyzed by this false choice of competing against the machine, or are you finally ready to use your uniquely human power skills, your critical thinking, your empathy, to actually lead it? The future completely belongs to the leaders who master this synergy. Keep learning, keep asking the hard questions, and thank you so much for joining me today.